A very good afternoon to you. I'm Milton Walker with the Midday News. A special welcome if you are watching us on onespotmedia.com. Director of Elections Glassbull Brown is arguing for an amendment to Section 48, subsection 8 of the Representation of the People Act, ROPA, which speaks to the role of a returning officer if there is a tie on a final count for a seat. Mr. Brown wants it to state clearly the options of the returning officer for casting a ballot. The section in question states, quote, "Whenever on such final count of votes an equality of votes is found to exist between both or any two or more candidates and an additional vote will entitle one of such candidates to be declared elected, the returning officer shall give such additional vote." The issue has arisen following Saturday's recount in Westmoreland Eastern when both the Jamaica Labour Party and People's National Party candidates had the same number of votes. The returning officer in casting a ballot picked the People's National Party's Luther Buchanan from a blind draw yesterday. Attorney General Marlene Malahou-Fort has disagreed with the method used by the returning officer to select the winning candidate, arguing on Twitter that he cannot, quote, "lawfully determine the outcome by putting two ballots in a box and drawing one," end quote. Speaking on the morning agenda on Power 106 today, the Director of Elections stated that the returning officer chose the method for casting his ballot as ROPA did not define the process.
Guide himself into the process that he will use. He can either assess it based on a number of factors, and he can maybe use whatever method he deems fit to use. And in this case, in Eastern Westmoreland, he decided to draw from a hat. Well, from a hat, it's a box.
Okay.
It was placed in the ballot box, and then he blindly selected a person. So he used that as a guide for him to make that decision, which is his right to do so.
Jamaica Labour Party candidate Daniel Lawrence was declared the winner by 8 votes following Thursday night's preliminary count. His legal team is making arrangements to apply for a magisterial recount. Prime Minister Andrew Holness and 4 ministers are to be sworn in at King's House in a few hours. The ceremonies are scheduled to begin at 3 o'clock and 4:30 respectively. Culture Minister Babsy Grange says due to COVID-19 protocols, a small number of guests will be in attendance. The names of the ministers who will be sworn in today have not been released. Public commentator Eleni Davis-White says it's likely that the 4 ministers to be sworn in this afternoon are for critical portfolios.
I want to believe that the priority ministries now would be finance, education, health, and national security, because in the context of the pandemic, those are the ministries that we are more concerned with now. I think he may take the opportunity to insert 1 or 2 new faces. I believe that he will, certainly in respect to education, be appointing a new face to education. I expect that he will retain Nigel Clark at finance.
Mrs. Davis-White is predicting the return of Dr. Christopher Tufton to the Health Ministry.
I think Dr. Tufton has been doing a reasonably good job in relation to the treatment of the pandemic, and similarly Dr. Chang in relation to national security. But I think a lot of it is going to depend on whether he wants to have a team around him that he is very confident in, that really reflects him.
And Culture Minister Babsy Grange says due to COVID-19 protocols, a small number of guests will be in attendance at the swearing ceremonies.
The Prime Minister will be invited by the Governor General to receive the instrument appointing him as Prime Minister, and also he will be invited to take and subscribe the oath of allegiance and oath of office. His Excellency the Governor General will present the instrument of appointment to the Prime Minister. Kevin Downswell will perform, after which the Prime Minister will respond. Of course, the numbers are in the ballroom. The function will be held in the ballroom of King's House. The COVID protocols will be strictly observed, so it will be a very small number of persons witnessing the ceremony.
People's National Party, the PNP, has declared that it will be an effective opposition despite the reduction in its numbers in the House of Representatives. Following the September 3 general election, the PNP has 15 members of parliament elect to the Jamaica Labour Party's 48. Observers have been calling for incoming opposition MPs to find ways to effectively fulfill their parliamentary obligations, including the chairing of or occupying seats on oversight committees, as well as critiquing legislation and government policy. PNP Chairman Fitz Jackson is promising a strong parliamentary opposition.
Steadfast and strident in fulfilling our oversight function in the Parliament on behalf of the Jamaican people. We will be relentless, we will be forceful in our fulfillment of that duty.
And public commentator Nicole Gordon says Mark Golding or Julian Robinson would be suitable candidates to take over the presidency of the PNP. PNP President Dr. Peter Phillips last week announced that he will step down from the post following the crushing defeat in Thursday's general election. Ms. Gordon was speaking yesterday on Radio Jamaica's weekly news review program, That's a Wrap.
I think that the challenge for them is that perhaps those who have the fire in the belly at this point in time may not be the most suitable option. So when you look at Hannah and Bunting, who seem to really want it, they don't appear to be the better options. But Golding and Robinson, who don't seem to have that fire in the belly, appear to be the better candidates.
Can they be fired up?
That's the point. I think that is the challenge for the PNP. But and so there has to be a way to get to them and see, for example, as you say, if they can be fired up.
We take a break now on Midday News. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Continuing the news. A trade unionist is urging the government not to become complacent in the management of the country's affairs, given the overwhelming majority it now holds in the House of Representatives. Prince Moore reports.
Following the September 3 general election, the PNP has 15 members of parliament elect to the Jamaica Labour Party's 48. Trade unionist St. Patrice Ennis says there are high expectations for the government to perform given this mandate. He says with reduced revenues, the public will be looking to see how the government manages the country's expenditure.
For the remainder of this year with the COVID pandemic, we are into recession. I am looking at how he's going to treat with public expenditure, particularly as we next year embark upon wage discussion in the public sector. I am looking to see how they are going to treat with that, particularly in light of we are now having reduced revenues and the public sector is indeed expanding. As you know, we have to employ more people to deal with this pandemic, particularly in the health sector. So it would be interesting to see what sort of allocation, budgetary allocation, and how they will treat with the size and the public expenditure with regard to the public sector, that is, and how they will treat with taxes going forward.
And as the People's National Party seeks to find a new president, Mr. Ennis is suggesting that one should be selected from among the elected senior members of parliament.
So that he has a platform in which to voice his opposition and which he can have command of the public in terms of them listening. So that is the first thing that they need to do. And they really have to look inside to see how is it that after 18 years and being returned for another 4 years, losing marginally, that they have been wiped out. What is it they have done wrong? Because clearly, whatever they are selling to the public is not buying it.
PNP President Dr. Peter Phillips last week announced that he will be stepping down from the post following the crushing defeat in Thursday's general election. Prince Moore, TVJ News.
General Secretary of the People's National Party, Julian Robinson, is now COVID-free. In a release this morning, the PNP said Mr. Robinson tested negative as per the Health Ministry's protocols. He has been cleared to resume normal duties. Mr. Robinson had tested positive last month after briefly experiencing some signs of tiredness. And the Criminal Records Office in downtown Kingston has been temporarily closed to facilitate sanitization of the building after some members of staff exhibited flu-like symptoms. The Jamaica Constabulary Force says the staff members are in quarantine and are awaiting test results for COVID-19. We go overseas. Multiple wildfires continue to burn in California, with officials saying one of the fires was started during a gender reveal party. California Fire Department said in a press release that a smoke-generating pyrotechnic device used at the party caused the El Dorado fire in San Bernardino County. More from CNN. And we don't have that story. In sports, Jamaican Elaine Thompson-Herah will return to the Khalifa Stadium for the first time since her disappointing fourth-place finish at the World Athletics Championships in Doha, Qatar last year, when she lines up in the women's 100 meters at the Wanda Diamond League meet on September 25. Thompson-Herah is the second fastest woman over the distance so far this year with 10.88 seconds, and she'll face two-time World 200-meter champion Daphne Shippers and multiple world medalist Marie-Josée Talou in the event. The last time all three competed in the Khalifa Stadium was for last year's World Championships, where Talou took the 100-meter bronze just 0.03 seconds ahead of Thompson-Herah. Shippers, meanwhile, was forced to withdraw from the final through injury. The three women have met at this meeting on two previous occasions. Thompson-Herah triumphed over 200 meters in 2017, clocking 22.19, with Shippers finishing second and Talou placing third. They clashed again 1 year later, this time over 100 meters, and Talou came out on top, running 10.85. Thompson-Herah was third on that occasion, and Shippers was sixth. And Jamaica and West Indies hard hitter Chris Gayle officially began training for the Kings 11 Punjab this season's Indian Premier League after completing the mandatory 6-day quarantine. The 40-year-old underwent 2 COVID-19 tests in Kingston and was allowed to travel after both returned negative. He arrived in the UAE on August 26 and stayed in his hotel room until the quarantine period ended. Gayle was then allowed to train with the team last week for the start of the tournament on September 19. Speaking to the Kings 11 media team, Gayle spoke about the quarantine experience and his thoughts on the team.
Yeah, it was normal, it was very relaxing for me, a lot of sleep. In the night I'll do some exercise and then, watch some TV. And now, here am I, back in class, universe back to school. Some new students here as well, so it's good to actually, meet some new students here as well. Some new teachers here as well, new headmaster, Anil, so Universe Park is back in school, so looking to rally with the head boy as well, Raul, K. Raul. This is going to be about 84 days together, so it's a new family, so this is our family, this is our home now, so we have to just try and add up as quickly as possible and enjoy each other's company.
In the 2019 season of the IPL, Gayle scored 490 runs from 13 matches for Kings 11 at an average of 40.83 with 4 half-centuries. Other regional players, including the likes of Andre Russell, Kerryon Pollard, will join their respective IPL teams after the completion of the Caribbean Premier League. And that's the midday news. I'm Milton Walker. Join us at 7 for primetime news, and before that, for live coverage of the swearing ceremony for Prime Minister Andrew Holness this afternoon at 2:30. The swearing ceremony will start at 3 p.m., but we will be on air from 2:30. I'm Milton Walker. Good afternoon.